With a heavy heart, I finally dust off a journal I have hidden away for over 100 years. As I take up my quill and touch ink to the old parchment, I have to be wary of marring the page with teardrops. This is not a story I want to tell you, but it's important, I think, to share a story of how my task is not without serious risks. It has not been me who falls victim to the many dangers in my adventures, but to my many companions over the centuries. This is the tale of one such, possibly the worst of all, and the one that has taken me the longest to set right finally. I have occasionally mentioned the Archlish Larloch and the cabal of vile and very powerful undead known as the Twisted Rune. I'm not inclined to fear many things, but the Twisted Rune has been a thorn in my side for a very long time. And although they may not have found a way to destroy me, they certainly have found ways to hurt me deeply. I must warn you that this is not a tale for light reading and amusement. It's a harrowing tragedy that has been, until now, a deeply shameful secret of mine. Locked away but always on my mind, and even more so than when some well-meaning and courageous hero offers to come with me on some mission into dangerous places. How can I warn them more strenuously than I do when such admonitions only serve to strengthen their foolhardy resolve? Well over a century ago, I was adventuring alongside a very fine and valorous man named Bartel of Suzail. Bartel, a paladin of the Church of Lathander, dedicated his life to battling the darkness that crept over the land, bringing light where there was shadow and hope where there was despair. His valor and righteousness were beyond reproach, and his company was a balm to the spirits of those he journeyed with. Along with a small group of priests from the Church of Kalimvor, we sought out places blighted by undeath to restore balance and peace. Our paths led us to a ruined abbey within the Giants Run Mountains, a place whispered in the local lore to be cursed by necromantic energies so potent that the dead dared not rest, nor did the living dare to tread. These were the places where the Twisted Rune often operated, hidden from the eyes of the world, conducting their dark experiments and expanding their influence through fear and manipulation. The abbey, once a bastion of light and learning, had fallen into darkness after a cataclysmic event that was said to be orchestrated by none other than the Twisted Rune themselves. It was believed they sought an ancient artifact buried beneath its stones, a relic of immense power and dread. The priests of Kalimvor were intent on sanctifying the site, for it had become a wellspring of undead, an aberration against everything they held sacred. The approach to the ruined abbey of the Twisted Rune was foreboding, a sentiment shared among all members of our small band, composed of the noble paladin Bartel of Suzail, myself, and a retinue of stern-faced priests from the Order of Kalimvor. As we navigated the rugged mountain terrain, the path became increasingly treacherous, winding between dead alpine trees whose bare branches scratched at the cold grey sky like the desperate fingers of drowning men. The granite columns upon which the abbey perched loomed ahead, their octagonal shapes jutting from the earth as if thrust upward by the very force of the dark magic that pervaded the area. These pillars, remnants of ancient volcanic fury, now laid the foundation for a structure marred by centuries of dark deeds and darker occupants. Our path twisted through remnants of a bygone era, rusted dwarven shields, discarded weapons, and skulls polished to a macabre shine, each a grim reminder of the abbey's brutal past. The air was thick with the cold mist that rose from the gorge to the south, carrying with it whispers of flowing water and the echoes of long-dead miners whose spirits seemed eternally bound to the catacombs beneath our feet. As we drew closer, the silhouette of the abbey emerged from the fog, its granite and riverstone masonry melding seamlessly with the natural surroundings, creating an edifice that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The dead moss clinging to the stones and the occasional raven perched atop the crumbling walls only added to the ominous atmosphere. The interior of the abbey was as chilling as its exterior. The Twisted Rune had transformed these sacred halls into a sanctum of undeath. The original wooden furnishings and tapestries, likely once rich with colour and life, had been replaced by the liches with items of stone and metal, each piece reflecting the cold, unyielding will of its new masters. The air inside was stale, carrying a faint underlying scent of decay and ancient dust stirred into the air by our careful footsteps. The echoes of our movement seemed to stir more than just air. They awakened an unsettling response from the depths of the abbey. Low moans and the clatter of bone on stone resonated from the catacombs, a reminder of the undead horrors that prowled these halls. Each shadow and each sound seemed to carry with it a portent of doom, a reminder of the many souls who had met their end within these walls. The Lich's presence was palpable, their essence infused into the very stones of the abbey. The oppressive atmosphere was a constant weight on our spirits, making each step heavier than the last. Clearly this place was not merely a stronghold, but a wellspring of dark magic, a hub from which the Twisted Rune exerted its influence over the surrounding lands. Our approach had been cautious, with each party member acutely aware of the potential ambush. The strategic placement of the abbey, its back secured by the gorge's steep walls, meant that any assault would directly confront the horrors that awaited us. The priests of Kalimvor murmured prayers under their breath, their words a soft counterpoint to the whispering wind that seemed to carry voices from the past, each tale a somber reminder of the abbey's dark legacy. As we prepared to enter the heart of this forsaken place, I recalled the lore surrounding liches, their creation, solitary nature, and relentless pursuit of power. These beings did not engage others without a dire purpose or deep strategy. Their manipulative nature was evident in the air of the abbey, the careful arrangement of defences both seen and unseen, and the subtle shifts of energy that suggested traps both magical and mundane. This was no mere exploration, but an intrusion into a domain where few living souls dared to tread. As we delved deeper into the shadowed corridors of the abbey, it became clear that the taint was deeper and more pervasive than we had feared. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the very stones seemed to whisper in a tongue lost to time. Bartel's face was set in a grim line, his hand ever on his holy symbol, his prayers a soft litany against the encroaching darkness. It was during one of these explorations, deep in the bowels of the abbey, where light seemed to die in the air before us, that disaster struck. A cadre of undead ambushed us, not the mindless, shambling creatures often encountered, but ones bearing the sinister mark of intelligence. They were led by a figure cloaked in shadows, its eyes burning with an almost palpable malice. The fight was desperate and fierce, and through it Bartel shone like a beacon, his sword cleaving through decayed flesh and brittle bone, his voice a clarion call to the forces of good that rallied to his side. Yet, victory was not without its cost. During the melee, Bartel was bitten by one of the undead, a creature I would later learn was a pawn of the Twisted Rune, a cursed agent sent to spread their vile influence. The bite was deep, and the venom it injected into him was dark and twisted, a curse of such virulent power that it began to change him before our eyes. As the days passed, the curse took hold, and Bartel began to change. Each night, under the pale light of the moon, he would die, his body becoming corpse-like, cold and inert as any dead man. And each morning he would return to life, his flesh warm, his heart beating, yet each resurrection saw him less the man he once was and more a creature of shadow and despair. His once bright eyes grew dim, and his laughter, a balm to our spirits, ever more haunted. His plight weighed heavily upon us, none more so than me, as I felt the burden of leadership and the profound sorrow of seeing a friend so afflicted. The transformation of Bartel was not merely physical. It wove into his spirit, tainting his noble heart and filling him with a dread that no living man should endure. This was a curse most foul, born from the dark magics that only the most depraved would dare wield. As time wore on, my resolve hardened. I would not let this stand. The tale of Bartel's affliction was one of many injustices wrought by the Twisted Rune, but it was one that I had witnessed firsthand, one that I could not consign to the annals of history without attempting to right this wrong. I delved into ancient tomes and consulted with the wisest sages and the most powerful wizards. As it turned out, the solution was as daunting as it was rare, a wish spell capable of breaking even the most potent curses. The pursuit of such a powerful spell was a saga unto itself. It required traversing forbidden lands, negotiating with capricious genies, and delving into the ruins of lost civilizations. Years turned into decades, and the quest consumed me, an obsession that was as much about saving Bartel as it was about proving that even the darkest magic could be undone. Finally, the components for the scroll were gathered, and the potent wish spell was inscribed with meticulous care upon the delicate parchment, carrying with it the immense potential to repair what had been so grievously shattered. Armed with the scroll, I returned to where Bartel, more spectre than man by then, was condemned to haunt the abbey's ruins, eternally shackled to the curse that ravaged him. Our reunion was steeped in melancholy. Bartel, or the remnants that lingered, recognized me through the veil of centuries. Once robust and resonant, his voice had dwindled to a whisper of sorrow. The curse had been cruel, each cycle of death and rebirth peeling away fragments of his humanity, leaving a being ensnared between realms. With a heart burdened by sorrow and hands steadied by resolve, I unfurled the scroll. The ancient words of power I recited wove through the stale air of the abbey, shimmering with raw, unbridled hope. The magic surged forth, enveloping Bartel in a brilliant cascade of light that pierced the pervasive gloom. As the spell reached its crescendo, the ethereal chains that bound him began to dissolve, and a profound peace seemed to settle over his spectral form. In that moment, I saw the glimmer of the man he once was, a valiant soul finally being granted reprieve. With a final ethereal sigh, he looked upon me, not with the hollow despair of the damned, but with the serene acceptance of one whose time has come to pass on. His form faded, dissolving into the light, and I felt a weight lift from my own soul, knowing his would wander no more, but would ascend to the celestial tranquility of Celestia, where his journey toward eternal righteousness could flourish unimpeded. The journey back to Candlekeep was a reflective pilgrimage, each step away from the abbey a step back toward a semblance of normalcy. Upon my return, the familiar contours of my quarters welcomed me like an old friend. Macrotaxel, my loyal pseudo-dragon, fluttered about with a perceptible excitement, his scales catching the light of the blue flames dancing in the fireplace. The blue leaf firewood warmed the room nicely and added a pleasant aroma as I settled into my chair, the weariness of the years seeming to melt away in the comfort of my own sanctuary. Crab cakes sizzled gently on the hearth griddle, the aroma mingled with the scent of ancient parchment and the musky tang of magic that always lingered in the air. Macrotaxel perched on the mantel, his eyes half closed in contentment as the room filled with the soothing crackle and pop of blue fire. Each bite of the crab cakes, crisp and richly seasoned, seemed to reaffirm life's continuing cycles of renewal and decay, endings and fresh beginnings. In the quiet of my study, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of ages and the subtle companionship of Macrotaxel, I penned the final entry of this harrowing chapter. It was a tale of loss and redemption, of dark pacts and the enduring strength of the human spirit, a reminder of the prices paid and the peace ultimately found. As the blue flames cast flickering shadows upon the walls, I allowed myself to ponder the enduring mysteries of life and the arcane, ever mindful of the next mystery awaiting just beyond the reach of the known. My name is AJ Pickett. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.